What if I told you that the very man who pierced Jesus' side on the cross didn't just vanish into history, but had his life completely transformed? Most people never stop to wonder, what happened to the Roman soldier who stood at the foot of the cross? Did he continue serving Rome as if nothing had changed, or did that moment alter his destiny forever? His story is one of power, faith, and an unexpected twist that few know about. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll see why his fate is one of the most astonishing untold stories of the Passion of Christ. So, stay with me, because once you hear what happened next, you'll never see the crucifixion the same way again. The sun rose over Golgotha, casting a crimson glow as the crowd gathered, some mourning, others mocking. Roman soldiers stood guard, their duty clear, yet this execution felt different. Jesus, bloodied yet composed, carried his cross with a dignity that unsettled even the battle-hardened centurion. Unlike other condemned men, he did not curse or beg for mercy. Instead, he spoke of forgiveness, a shocking contrast to the brutality surrounding him. As the nails pierced his hands, an eerie stillness fell over the hill, broken only by whispers of prophecy and doubt creeping into the centurion's mind. Then, the sky darkened, and the earth trembled, a sign no one could ignore. The centurion had overseen many deaths, but never one like this. How could a man on the verge of death radiate such peace? The weight of the moment pressed on him, forcing him to question everything he had known. Was this truly the end of a criminal, or the beginning of something greater? What happened next would change not just history, but his own destiny. Among the Roman soldiers stationed in Judea, the centurion was no ordinary warrior. He was a man of discipline, authority, and unwavering loyalty to the empire. Tasked with commanding a unit of about 100 men, he was both feared and respected. His life revolved around order, strength, and ensuring that Roman rule was upheld at all costs. This particular centurion, standing at the foot of the cross, had likely spent years in military campaigns, witnessing countless executions. Yet, something about this moment felt profoundly different, as if the weight of the divine was pressing upon him. For Rome, crucifixion was routine, a brutal but effective tool to maintain control. The centurion had likely seen insurgents, thieves, and rebels meet their fate without a second thought. His duty was not to question but to enforce. However, Jesus was no ordinary prisoner. His demeanor, the way he carried his suffering without resistance, planted an unfamiliar feeling in the centurion's heart: doubt. Could this man truly be a threat to Rome, or was there something more to his story? The centurion was a product of a world where power ruled and mercy was seen as weakness. Yet, standing before Jesus, he saw something greater than power. He saw purpose. The way Jesus spoke, even in agony, carried an authority unlike any ruler he had served. It wasn't forceful, but it was undeniable. This man did not beg for his life, nor did he curse his accusers. He forgave. How could a condemned man offer something even kings failed to grasp? Though he did not yet fully understand, the centurion felt something shift within him. He had seen men fight against death, but never had he seen one embrace it with such certainty. The whispers of the crowd, the trembling earth, and the fading light all seemed to echo the same question: who was this man? And why did his presence shake even the soul of a hardened soldier? This moment would not be easily forgotten. Though his armor remained intact, cracks had begun to form in the centurion's belief in Rome's absolute power. Soon, his role in this event would take an even more unexpected turn, one that would lead him to a truth far greater than he had ever known. As darkness covered the sky and the earth trembled, the centurion stood in stunned silence. He had overseen countless executions, but never had the very forces of nature seem to respond. As Jesus took his final breath, something undeniable gripped his heart. With a voice that broke through the silence, he declared, "Truly, this was the Son of God." It was not just an observation, it was a realization that shook him to his core. The centurion had always believed in the absolute power of Rome, yet here he was, questioning everything. Jesus had not died like an ordinary man, he had surrendered with grace, as if embracing his own destiny. Could he, a soldier of the empire, have just participated in the death of the Messiah? The weight of this thought was unbearable. Had he been following orders, or had he just played a role in something far greater? Could he ever be forgiven? The once confident soldier now felt uncertain, standing at the crossroads of belief and disbelief. The mocking crowd had fallen silent, the priests had lost their composure, and even the soldiers around him looked shaken. Something beyond human understanding had taken place, and the centurion could no longer ignore it. He had spent his life enforcing Roman law, but for the first time, he wondered if true power came not from the empire, but from the man who had just died on that cross. The centurion left Golgotha a different man than when he arrived. The echoes of his own words, "Truly, this was the Son of God," lingered in his mind, unraveling everything he had once believed. He had spent years enforcing the will of Rome, believing strength and order were the highest truths. But now, after witnessing Jesus' final moments, he felt an unfamiliar stirring in his soul. The authority he had trusted no longer seemed absolute. If Jesus was truly the Son of God, then what did that mean for those who had sentenced him? And what did it mean for him? The supernatural events of that day refused to fade into memory. He had seen the darkness cover the land, the earthquake shake the ground, and the temple veil tear in two. None of this was coincidence. For the first time, the centurion questioned the gods of Rome. Could they have silenced the wind? Could they have commanded the earth to tremble? The God of Jesus, however, had made his presence undeniable. The centurion had witnessed power, but this was something else, divine authority, love, and justice intertwined in a way he had never imagined. In the days that followed, he could not ignore the growing unrest in his heart. He had seen condemned men before, but never one who embraced death with such peace. Jesus had not fought his captors, had not cursed those who tortured him. He had forgiven. That kind of love was foreign to a man of war. What if he had been wrong all along? Could it be that true strength was not found in the might of the empire, but in the surrender of the cross? Doubt and conviction wrestled within him. What would Rome say if a centurion abandoned his post to seek the truth of a crucified man? His entire life had been built on duty, yet that duty now felt hollow. He had killed in the name of Caesar, but what if true kingship belonged to the very man he had helped put to death? This was no longer a question of history, it was personal. The weight of his role in Jesus' execution would not let him go. Something had shifted within him, and there was no returning to the man he once was. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear: he could no longer serve two masters. The empire had given him rank, power, and identity. But in Jesus, he had glimpsed something greater, truth. And now, he had to decide, would he continue as a soldier of Rome, or would he follow the call of the man who had just changed his life forever? The weight of what he had witnessed at Golgotha continued to press upon the centurion's soul. The man who once lived by Rome's code of strength and conquest now found himself haunted by the image of Jesus on the cross. He could not shake the feeling that he had been part of something far greater than an execution, something divine. Though duty demanded he return to his post, his heart was restless. The gods of Rome had never moved him like this. Could it be that the true God had spoken to him through the very man he had condemned? According to Christian tradition, this centurion did not remain in his old life. The encounter at the cross changed him forever. In time, he abandoned his military rank and sought the followers of Jesus, desperate to understand the truth. As he listened to their testimonies, he realized that Jesus' death was not the end of the story. The man he had helped crucify had risen from the dead. The resurrection confirmed what his heart had already begun to believe: Jesus was indeed the Son of God. And if that was true, then his only path forward was one of faith. Leaving behind his sword and title, he embraced a new identity, not as a warrior of Rome, but as a follower of Christ. He no longer swore allegiance to Caesar but to the kingdom of heaven. This was no small decision. To abandon Rome's service was to risk exile, persecution, even death. Yet, for the centurion, the choice had already been made in his heart. The power he had once wielded as a soldier paled in comparison to the power of Jesus' love and sacrifice. His life had been given a new purpose, one he could no longer ignore. As time passed, the centurion became known among believers as Longinus, a name that would be etched into Christian history. His transformation was more than a personal journey, it became a testimony of how even those who once stood against Christ could be redeemed. The man who had once carried out executions now spread the message of life. Where he once commanded soldiers, he now led others in faith. His story was living proof that no one was beyond the reach of God's grace. The same soldier who had once pierced Jesus' side would now spend the rest of his days proclaiming his name. But following Christ would come at a cost. The empire he once served would soon turn against him. His faith would be tested not on the battlefield, but in the fires of persecution. And yet, Longinus would stand firm, because once you have encountered the truth, there is no turning back. During the crucifixion, the centurion thrust his spear into Jesus' side, fulfilling his duty as a Roman soldier. But according to tradition, this act became more than just a final blow, it became the moment of his own transformation. As blood and water flowed from Jesus' wound, some accounts say that drops fell into the centurion's eyes, miraculously restoring his sight. What had once been a routine execution turned into an undeniable encounter with the divine. This healing was more than physical, it was spiritual. The soldier who had once looked upon Jesus with indifference now saw him for who he truly was. The irony was profound, the very blood he had drawn had become the source of his own redemption. If Jesus had the power to heal the man who pierced him, what else could he restore? For the centurion, this was no coincidence. It was proof that grace could reach even those who once stood against it. With this revelation, there was no turning back. The man who had come to Golgotha as a Roman warrior would leave with a faith that would soon put him at odds with the empire he once served. His restored sight was not just about vision, it was about purpose. And as he embraced his new path, he would soon discover that following Christ would come at a great cost. Longinus' transformation did not go unnoticed. As a former Roman centurion, his sudden devotion to Christ was seen as betrayal. The empire tolerated many gods, but allegiance to a crucified man was unacceptable, especially from one of their own. Word spread that the soldier who had once enforced Rome's rule was now preaching the gospel. This was a direct challenge to the power of Caesar, and Rome would not allow it to continue. The same empire he had once served now turned against him, branding him a traitor. Persecution came swiftly. Ordered to renounce his faith, Longinus refused, standing firm in the truth he had witnessed. He had once feared nothing but death, yet now, even death held no power over him. The Roman authorities, enraged by his defiance, subjected him to brutal torture. His tongue was cut out to silence his preaching, but even without words, his faith remained unshaken. His eyes were gouged out, yet he saw more clearly than ever before. What could Rome take from him that he had not already surrendered to Christ? His suffering became a testimony. Each act of cruelty only reinforced the power of his faith. Like so many others who would follow in his footsteps, Longinus understood that the true battle was not against flesh and blood but against the forces that sought to silence the message of salvation. He had once lived by the sword, but now he stood unarmed, wielding only the unshakable certainty of Christ's resurrection. Rome could break his body, but they could not touch his soul. In the end, Longinus paid the ultimate price. Executed for his unwavering belief, he embraced martyrdom not as a defeat, but as a final victory. He had once overseen the death of the Savior, and now, he willingly gave his life for him. The soldier who had stood beneath the cross would now stand before the throne of God. His story was no longer one of violence, but of redemption, a living proof that no one is beyond the reach of grace. His death was not the end. The legacy of Longinus spread far beyond the walls of Rome. His name became a symbol of transformation, of how even the hardest heart can be turned toward Christ. And to this day, His story reminds us that the power of faith is greater than any empire, any ruler, or any sword. The soldier who had once pierced Jesus now stood as a witness to the truth, one that even death could not silence. After his martyrdom, Longinus' name lived on as a powerful symbol of redemption. Once a soldier of Rome, he became a saint of the Church, proving that no one is beyond the reach of God's grace. His story spread among believers, inspiring countless conversions. Over time, he was venerated as one of the 14 holy helpers, with many seeking his intercession, particularly for ailments of the eyes, an enduring reminder of the miracle that had opened not just his physical sight, but his spiritual vision. His legacy continues to this day. From ancient Christian texts to churches bearing his name, Longinus remains a testament to transformation. His journey from executioner to disciple is proof that God calls even the most unlikely hearts. His story challenges us to reflect: if a man who once pierced Jesus could find salvation, what is stopping us from embracing the truth? His life serves as a reminder that faith is not about where we start, but about the choice to follow Christ, no matter the cost. The story of the centurion who pierced Jesus' side is more than just an ancient account, it's a powerful reminder that no one is beyond transformation. If a hardened Roman soldier, once an instrument of execution, could become a witness to Christ's truth, what does that mean for you? Have you ever felt like your past mistakes define you, or that redemption is out of reach? Longinus' journey proves otherwise. His life was forever changed by an encounter with Jesus, just as yours can be. And if you want to dive deeper into these hidden biblical revelations, don't forget to check out the ebook in the first comment pinned below. It's the perfect guide to help you explore the Bible in a structured and insightful way. Thank you for watching, and if this story resonated with you, subscribe to the channel, activate notifications, and join us on this journey of faith.